Why there's good money in hating Elon Musk. Are you the misinformation? I'm Brian. Welcome to my Tesla weekend. Can everybody hear me? Do I sound good? Do I look so pretty? As a reminder, this is the full version that comes out on Friday on the second channel, My Tesla Live. Who knows? Maybe it's the condensed version. It is whichever you see on the screen. Let's get into it, shall we? So what is fake news, man? How does it spread? So, of course, there's bots. Lots and lots of bots. Bots are great. They're so fun. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc. According to a 2017 estimate, there were 23 million bots on Twitter, around 8.5% of all accounts. Well, that's a subject for a different day. 140 million on Facebook, 27 million on Instagram. This is 5 years ago. It's gotten bigger. And what do? They look for trends, they retweet them, they retweet each other, they boost each other across mediums, and but the biggest part is people like you and me. Because what's crazy is, news is boring, and salacious lies are juicy. They're much more clickable. They get good reactions. They get more engagement, which drives people to post more of them. So I've talked to people online before who I say, you're sharing blatant misinformation. Here's the source and the evidence. And they say, oh, now I'm a bot? No, you don't have to be a bot to repeat bot information. In fact, the bots depend on humans to do their work for them. And then there's micro-targeting, where they go into particular communities to spread a very specific message targeted just for them. And also, they'll follow you with cookies and all that. And then we get down, of course, to the actual troll armies. And I think troll is the wrong word. Troll is someone who just likes to throw gas on the fire and run away. No, in this context, trolls are the people whose job it is to spread false information. Yeah. 4chan, Reddit, 8chan, YouTube, Facebook, they are anywhere you might be. So let's look at that. Who benefits from misinformation about Tesla? And really about Elon generally? Well, Legacy Auto, of course. Toyota has been making their own propaganda, literal propaganda, in a shareable format. And this isn't new. The legacy car companies criticized electric cars for a very long time because they weren't making them. So if we're not going to make them, we just don't want anyone to buy them. And then you've got, the legacy car companies and the shift to EVs, why they cannot win. And part of it is they painted themselves into a corner. They told you if it doesn't have over 300, 400, 500 miles of range, it's no good. Oh, by the way, ours doesn't. Well, you convince people of something that now you realize is impossible. But the bigger one here is the dealership network. That is a very moneyed lobby. They have the ability to spread misinformation themselves. They absolutely benefit from keeping Tesla and others who would look to avoid the dealer situation entirely out. Flurry of misinformation about electric cars targets Biden's Build Back Better plan. And this was crazy. Last year, there were so many different myths that came out targeting it. Because this wasn't specifically aimed at Tesla, but it was aimed at electric vehicles. And it criticized all of them, including Tesla. So Legacy Auto, they've got some interest there. But there's also Legacy Oil, Legacy Energy. Big oil and big energy absolutely do not care for green tech. In part because the sun is harder for them to harvest, I guess we could say. So this is an older article, but the Koch brothers turn their wrath and their wealth against EV subsidies. Yeah, please, burn fuel. Burn fuel. Even if we only have coal mines, and coal mines produce electricity, really, the more cars that are using the sun and the wind, the fewer there are going to be using fossil fuels generally. You could convert a plant to run on natural gas, but you know. And there's a lot of moneyed interests I didn't include. One of the big ones is the push for hydrogen has largely been financed by fossil fuel companies because it is cheaper and easier to make hydrogen out of natural gas than it is out of water. It takes a lot of energy to make it out of water. And they will make sure that it stays that way. How the oil industry pumped Americans full of fake news. This is something that they've been doing forever. They've lied about climate change, they've lied about everything, and they're using the same tactics. I actually got to meet a guy who worked as a misinformation specialist on behalf of fracking. And he explained that the goal isn't to win the argument, the goal is to wear you down so you give up. And as soon as you give up, or it's clear there's no longer any audience, they just move on to the next one. Because it's about results. It's not about changing minds, it's about sowing discord. It's about creating doubt, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And there are so many people who have financial interests in Elon failing. Oil campaign against electric cars is like big tobacco lobbying. And in many ways, the oil campaign used the same PR firms, the same attorneys, the same all of it. And then you've got, in terms of finishing up here on big energy, batteries will not be the future of grid balancing in Germany. Now, this is also an older article. This is not a disreputable agency, but these things, and at the time this may have been fairly true, but these are popular notions. I've seen people on social media say, grid scale storage won't work because you would need to handle 3 months of backup energy, and that would be this many batteries. 3 months? What are you talking about? You need 3 hours, maybe 3 days. 3 days would be excessive. It's a grid. It's very large. You can transmit electricity 1,000 miles with HV, high voltage DC lines with minimal transmission losses. Think 3-ish%. But you know who else doesn't like some of the things that Elon's up to between the electric vehicles and the grid batteries? Oil-rich countries. The companies, sure, we know they're engaged in misinformation, but let's look at some of the suspects on here. Russia is the 3rd largest oil producer. They are a gas station connected to a liquor store. And for that matter, Iran is on here. Iran, well, surely they're not so deep in it. Well, let's look at Russia first. Russia's oil is in long-term decline, and the war has only added to the problem. Without oil money, Russia's in trouble. They've got very little else to go on, and a lot of the businesses that they had that were just getting started and growing, IBM has left the country, and a lot of others have. So attacking green technology to boost oil is a big deal. And if you don't think they have the ability, Russian web brigades are very well known. They have hundreds, perhaps thousands of people who work in an office that you can go to. It is in a known location. And these people pose as very real fellow Americans, very real fellow EV owners, very real Tesla owners who I just have some concerns. I'm not going to buy another one. So, well, now, mind you, these people do exist in real life. There are people who have bought a Tesla and decided I'm not buying another electric car. They're very rare, though. Most of the ones you meet are probably fake. Probably. And those who aren't can, repeat as fact the things they have read. Those sentiments soak into our brains. But if you're looking at misinformation, there's this interesting Hamilton 2.0 dashboard that tracks where fake information is coming from. And you will consistently see Iran on the list. Iran, right here. Interesting that so much fake news would be generated from and about Iran. They have some very effective campaigns. And anything Iran can do to minimize all things Musk, the more oil they could potentially sell. Revealed Iran's clumsy troll army pushed 1 million tweets in an effort to destabilize the region. Yeah, so we know that this is a thing. And we know that we don't always know what their targets are, but it's absolutely a thing. Now let's get back to Russia. Looks like Russia's space chief threatened Elon on Twitter. And, well, they should, I suppose, because SpaceX is absolutely eating their lunch. Prior to SpaceX, Russia handled much of the world's payload delivery, and for a significant amount of time handled all deliveries to the space station. It's frustrating for them to watch their market share collapse. So this only goes up through 2020, but this blue is orbital deliveries from the Soviet Union / Russia. You can see with the collapse of the Soviet Union, it fell, but it was doing all right. And what you don't see on this line is that it has since kind of collapsed, while this yellow orange line represents the US. SpaceX has already launched 32 rockets this year. This is already their busiest rocket launch year. And other aerospace feels the same way. There was a thread I saw regarding SpaceX versus United Launch Alliance years ago, where someone from the United Launch Alliance was in the Reddit discussion explaining why it is critical that everything launch with ULA because they're more reliable. Well, that ship has sailed. Falcon 9 Block 5 has never had a failure. And even if you include earlier blocks, they're still over 98%, maybe 99% as of today in terms of success. Excuse me. Got it. Still human. Still human. And we know that Russia's not super jazzed about SpaceX having their Starlink internet providing service in Ukraine. It's a real thorn in Putin's man-boobies. I'm sure he doesn't care for it. 150,000 people in the country use the service each day. And that's with no ground stations. There's no ground relay. They're using relay stations in adjacent countries. Because it works. And this is kind of, Boeing does their own misinformation campaigns. Theirs are a little more traditional, but I'm sure they hire PR firms who can do any sort of thing you'd like. These are problematic. And Boeing is part of the United Launch Alliance. So then we get to telecom. 5G for 12 gigahertz coalition snaps back at Starlink's misinformation campaign. No you. Is it? Because the moneyed interests at these providers have been pushing a lot of things that aren't true about how Starlink can't work, about how it's ruining astronomy, which, by the way, it isn't. I talked to the amateur astronomy group at the fair a while back, and I said, does it matter? Does this, I've seen the trains going overhead all, reflecting, and they said, we thought it would, but it doesn't. That was when they were first launched, and in very low orbit. The orbit's much higher now. They're much more spread out now. And they didn't say it, but they are using less reflective paint. And it's not really that noticeable, except a little bit here and there, like any satellite, and just before and after dusk and dawn, respectively. So that's not a big deal. So if you can't attack them on facts, because increasingly the facts are not in your favor if you're a blind Musk hater. You have to get off the facts where you can't win and baffle them with bear shot. I didn't want to say bull because that's a good thing. So you see stuff like this. Funny thing here is that Elon is the welfare queen. Without the government's handouts subsidizing Tesla, he wouldn't be the richest person in the world. Well, that's demonstrably false and frankly stupid, but it is such a common refrain. And Elon has gotten literally billions from us to run his failed projects. Failed? and started his company with his dad's millions from oppressing people in Africa. So, I mean, I'm not going to go into these because I have made whole videos about it. About how all this nonstop FUD is just wrong and dishonest and, frankly, a bit stupid. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense, but sense is not what it's about. That's not the objective. That's not what they're going for. It's more about just creating the uncertainty. Because that's all they have to do is make you hate Musk enough that you will do anything to oppose him. Did Tesla really get subsidies? So this guy responds, did Tesla really get subsidies though? Looking it up, Tesla received much less as far as subsidies than any other car company. And what it did receive was in loans, was paid back to the government in full, and a link. 2 upvotes. 2. The bad guys don't provide citations. The only one they provide is that nonsense from Business Insider. The interview with his dad. Elon, apartheid blood money, Musk. Apartheid blood money. Now, you could say apartheid era, but so is Lethal Weapon 2. Elon, my dad owned an emerald mine in apartheid South Africa. Musk needs to sit the F down when talking to Bernie. Musk is such a spoiled ass biatch. So, get any of your facts right? I mean, get any of your facts right. And again, I'm not going to relitigate it because I've already done it. Link in the description after the show ends. Elon would be a literal nobody without the wealth of his parents, which was amassed on the backs of slaves. These bad boys just keep accelerating. Let's ratchet up the nonsense, guys. He has no concept of what a man like Bernie has to go through to elevate himself in life. A person that has been as privileged as him from birth will never be able to conceptualize. It all comes back to that interview with Elon Musk done by Business Insider. And I'm not going to link it because can Business Insider go? Yes, they can. Yes, they can. They interviewed Errol. They took all of his outrageous claims at face value and didn't fact check them and didn't attempt to. Because if they fact checked them, they'd realize they're BS. And, you know, we gotta move units, baby. We gotta sell. Who the F would be against anyone paying their fair share? Musk is a bad guy. Stop worshiping him. His evil, corrupt, greedy, miserly sorry butt. He's scared, and he should be. We're coming for you, and we're demanding you're at least paying your fair share. You're stealing our hard-earned taxes. You're stealing our government. Mr. Musk, you're our problem. We're paying your bills. Now, am I saying that these people are fake? I don't think they are. I think they're mistaken. I think they're what they call in political terms useful idiots. I think these are real dipshits. Record tax bill. Do you remember? $11 billion. That's enough to fund NASA for 5 months, 4 months. That's the largest single tax bill in human history for 1 year. It might be the most taxes an individual has ever paid. If not, he'll probably get there in the next year or two. So if you're saying you're paying his taxes, you've been manipulated. Let's put it that way. So we're getting close to the Q&A. Get your questions ready. He's such a huge a-hole that I will never buy a effing Tesla. Those cars could grow their own vegetables and give out weekly mouthies, and I still wouldn't buy them. There it is. That's the conclusion of Baffle 'em with Bearshot. There's nothing wrong with the tech. The tech is good. The tech could be brilliant. I'll never buy one because of the things that I have been told about the guy in charge. He's such a... The problem is he thinks he's really cool. It's really cool to be a real-life supervillain. He wants to be Lex Luthor. He's some kind of evil genius, and he thinks the world sees him that way. He wants to be celebrated for his achievements, but still be cool with younger people. Stupid tweets, memes, stolen jokes. Well, that's the plan, isn't it? And that's the thumbnail. That's where the thumbnail came from. Supervillain is an irresistibly evil label. If you wanted to be a supervillain, you could. Most of the people you should be hating just keep quiet. Well, he doesn't want to keep quiet, and he doesn't need to. But it's just crazy, man. Who is this? Says Lex is just misunderstood. Yeah, Lex is less evil than many real-life villains. It's painful to see this. We can't hold SpaceX down. We can't hold Tesla down. We can't hold renewable energy and battery storage down. Let's attack him. Let's make people hate him so much that they will do things that is against their own best interest. I mean, let's say, for argument's sake, that his father genuinely owned a diamond mine, a blood diamond mine in South Africa, which he didn't. That is not even the claim. Not the country, anyway. And that he literally had slaves. Did he choose who he was born to? I didn't choose who I was born to. I grew up believing I was poor. And it turned out my parents were just breathtakingly frugal. I had an absolutely privileged life. But I don't think I would trade my middle-class life in America for an upper-class life of the same era in South Africa. And I don't think any of the haters would either. And then, of course, they make fun of his not-so-hot dad bod. He's a man in his 50s. Oh, he's so pale. Yeah, he works. Whole Mars Catalog tweeted a good one. He said, anyone making fun of his dad bod needs to first post a picture of themselves. That would shut up a lot of people. So we'll get into the Q&A hole here in a second. But first I wanted to cover, real quick, is Herbert D's nuts for leaving CEO as CEO of Volkswagen? Is he coming to Tesla? There's a lot of discussion about this. There's a lot of criticism of D saying, well, he's a legacy guy. He doesn't understand. Well, maybe they let him go because because he sees it differently than the legacy guys. He's definitely been pushing harder for electrification than anyone. Well, the software on the VWs is an absolute disaster, and he's at the helm. Yes, but it's a disaster for everyone apart from Tesla. At least VW was trying to get the software under control. If there's some other company that's mastering software, apart from Tesla, I'd love to see who it is. And that's not something that he can exactly fix. All he can do is put resources at it, and he made sure that happened. So, is Deese headed for Tesla? Maybe. Maybe. I don't know at this point, and I don't have an opinion at this point, but I think it's a very interesting idea. And not as CEO of Tesla, although that could be a thing in the future, but certainly head of European operations. I think that would make some people more comfortable in Germany, in that market, in the political sphere, having someone like Deese in charge of the region. But I don't know. So we'll get into the Q&A hole here. As always, a quick thank you to my patrons who get early access, bonus content, direct dialogue with me, a look at my 11-year production prediction tracker, which is behind schedule, and I apologize for that. So let's answer some questions real quick. I did want to say thank you to JJ for the super chat. Your robot overlords would like to remind you that there is more money in propping up Elon's lies. Who? I don't know what that means. KMM, thank you for the super chat. Didn't the Russians and Saudi governments have large short positions? I don't know. Oh, who is this says, you're thinking of Bill Gates. And I often confuse Bill Gates for two entire countries based on GDP. You only need 18 hours of backup power. I think even 18 is excessive. If the power lines are down, it doesn't matter how much storage you have, you're not going to be able to transmit it. And if the power lines are up, you've got access to power from the entire grid. There's 3 grids, of course: East Coast, West Coast, and Texas. We have very little HVDC lines. Most of our lines are HVAC. Getting new power lines is just about impossible without killing property rights. Charlie, that is true. John Oliver, did a really great segment on it and the problems with it. The possibilities exist. Whether or not they're being used is another matter. David says, never buying another internal combustion engine car again. JJ says, my favorite misinformation is that hydrogen is not viable as a fuel source. Hydrogen's application will be, I think, hugely beneficial in things like aircraft and long-haul shipping, ships at sea, where energy density is more critical. For daily driving, it seems to be a solution in search of a problem. Hydrogen will happen. The question is to what extent and where and for what application. Digital Blade Canada says they'd say it's like Mr. Burns blotting out the sun over Springfield. Facts are hard to get from people. From my experience, people don't even read beyond the headline, even if the article tells a different story. Sad state of journalism these days. For sure. For sure. You will find that on Facebook and Twitter and Reddit, where people in the comments are always asking questions that are answered in the first line, the first sentence of the article. What a sad, empty existence for haters. Poor way to spend the short, precious time we get here. I saw a great conversation on Twitter today with some person I'm not familiar with who owns a Tesla and despises Tesla and constantly tweets about how awful it is. And I decided to look at his Twitter feed, and my goodness, I couldn't, just the 5 minutes I spent reading through it was exhausting. I couldn't imagine living my life that way. MD Hofsey says, don't forget, I went through the tax bill on my channel. Yeah. And that was not well understood at the time. Reuters photo, LOL. Yeah, that is an actual Reuters photo that they're taking credit for. Okay. Maybe that's the source. Oh, Globe staff photo illustration. So they took the picture and modified it. That makes more sense. I thought Bezos was the supervillain. He would like that. He would like you to believe that. I don't think he's capable of reaching that aspiration. The chip shortage is ending now. What excuses will legacy ICE have for declining sales after it's over? I don't think they are going to decline. I think they're going to resurge a little bit before EVs actually take over, because dealer inventory is low. And what they'll do is it'll just force the dealerships to reduce their markups, their second stickers, to reasonable levels. Will Deese sell his VW stock and buy Tesla stock? Maybe. It might have a lockup on it, or at least a vesting period, but I assume once September 1st rolls around and he's gone, that would be the end of the lockup, or of the vesting. It won't vest in addition to that. Everyone give a thumbs up. Yes, please. Yes, please. JJ says, YouTube is a social media, right? I do. And I hope that you question the things I say. I provide citations for all this stuff. The people who are saying that a number of the things that I'd said earlier, that we pointed out, that we discussed, are not offering citations. They're offering their deeply, sincerely held opinions. So that's why I put the links in the description. That's why I show you what I'm talking about. Because listening to me ramble isn't even something I enjoy doing. He's like your polar opposite. He owns a Tesla and hates it. Meanwhile, you love Tesla and don't have one. That's right. That's right. Maybe I would, you know what? Maybe I would hate one. You should buy me one so we can find out how much I hate it. It's possible. The odds are non-zero. Bezos is an angel compared to Bill Gates. They're both pretty evil. Bill Gates is working more aggressively in attempts to repurchase his soul from the devil, so far unsuccessfully. Yeah, you can't argue with crazy. You cannot. And I assume that if you see crazy and you link them to this video, it will do nothing. But it's important that we understand how many of these claims, how many of them that are repeated, are not sincere. Got it in 30 minutes, baby. Doing my job real good. So guys, what did I miss or misunderstand? Leave me all your thoughts in them comments below. Stay tuned, stay juicy, and I can't wait to hear from you clever robots.